Greetings, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's Building Power. I am your host, Zakiya Sankara Jabbar, and as you all know, we meet here every week at noon on Wednesdays. So, first up today, I want to share with you all that my organization, Bright Beam, on our Voice to Action website, we actually are running a campaign today, and it is extremely important. We are telling the FCC to update E-rate. So today is a day of action to get families connected ASAP. With schools forced online, the pandemic has exposed just how unfairly access to broadband internet is in our country, even as government and business have scrambled to close this gap. 12 million students are still disconnected, and they are disproportionately low income, rural, or students of color. What is E-rate and how can it help? The federal government already gives money to schools and libraries for internet access through a program called E-rate. But the schools and libraries can't use that money to get students and families across access in their homes, even during a pandemic. So we are asking and pressuring the Federal Communications Commission to change this right now with this simple template. So make sure you visit our website, Voice to Action, under the Action section that says Tell the FCC to update E-rate. You can also access our social media kit, which has been documented in the comments for you. And we want to make sure that everyone has access to hop on Twitter, hop on Facebook, any of your social media accounts. We have the social media toolkit already put together for you. It's pretty easy. You can just copy and paste the tweets. We have nice graphics there for you, and we would really appreciate your support on this day for this day of action. Thank you all so much. Now, oh my goodness, I get to interview my dear friend, Sister Jennifer Farmer. And I am excited to welcome her today to Building Power. Welcome, Jennifer. Let me just read a little bit more about my friend Jennifer. First of all, you all should know she is a PR expert and just all around amazing human being. Jennifer is an author, trainer, and small business owner. She is the host of the award-winning United Methodist Women Faith Talks podcast. Farmer is also the author of First and Only, a Black Woman's Guide to Thriving at Work and in Life by Broadleaf Books, and an extraordinary PR ordinary budget, a strategy guide which was published by Barrett Kohler Publishers. In addition to her books, she is an essayist whose writing focuses on everything from faith to leadership development to issues of gender and race. Her work has appeared in publications such as Thrive Global, Blavity, Society for Nonprofits, Chronicle of Philanthropy, CNN, The Root, HuffPost, Lifehack, PR Daily, Red Letter Christians, and more. You can learn more about Jennifer at jenniferfarmer.org. Welcome to Building Power, Jennifer. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me, Zakiya.
Absolutely, where you look great. I have to say, I've been jumping around in First and Only, and no, first of all, I'm very proud of you. I know that this was a labor of love for you. You and I talked off and on during the time that you were writing this book. Share more, about yourself that you would like this audience to know about you, and share, I guess, what prompted you to write a book like this.
So, Zakiya, once again, thank you for creating space for this conversation.
Mhm.
You were one of the few people who I talked to during the period when I was writing the book, and you actually have a credit in the book, as you know.
Yes.
And, I think you hit the high points. I'm a writer. I'm a mother. I'm committed to social justice. And what that looks like for me is to lifting up the work of people who are on the front lines, people who are organizing in communities and helping to ensure that their stories do not go unheard. So that's, a little bit about who I am. And I wrote this book to Black women. I was observing a number of things, including how Black women are perceived at work and in life, the hurdles that we have to jump through to be seen and to be heard and to be understood, the stress that puts on ourselves as well as our families. And as I surveyed the leadership landscape, I realized that there was not enough books written by Black women about Black women. I Can you all hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, great. So, I realized that there were not enough books about the Black woman's experience. And certainly there are some, but I feel like when you look at leadership, the leadership market, you see a ton of content written by white men. And that content does not reflect the realities of what Black women experience. But the other thing that I noticed is that for Black women, everything that we do, every bit of leadership advice that we receive, it has to be viewed from the context of race, of gender, of sexuality, of gender identity. So we can't just pick a book off the shelf that was written for a white man and not understand how even applying some of those can be risky for us as Black women and understanding the nuance. And I'll give you an example. In many books that I've read, it said, well, you have to go in and ask for a raise. You have to do that. And so when we attempt to follow that advice on a Black woman, it can show up differently. Some people can feel like, well, what makes you feel like you deserve it, or the audacity? You should just be happy to have a job. And so what I'm saying is that, we need more texts that speak to the uniqueness of our experience, of our history, of our traumas, and of our dreams. And I wrote this book to add to that collection. I actually can't hear you.
I'm so sorry. I'm just talking. Thank you for explaining that. I really, I've been jumping around. I think I said that at the beginning. I've been jumping around in the book. And the I see you kind of made me tear up because that's powerful, right? The way you explained the intricacies and the different, not just at work, but life, and just how we carry sometimes just having to show up in work and in different spaces constantly with this knowing that we have to continuously prove ourselves and prove the fact that we're brilliant. And it's not just afforded to us. That stood out to me. The other piece was the article on anger is harmful, right? And that one stood out to me because I've certainly, in this world of activism, so I've embraced the fact that I'm an angry Black woman. I know so many Black women who run away from that, but I have actually embraced it because to me, it's a righteous indignation. I should be angry about what's happening to our children in the schools, right? Like I should be angry about what we see that's happening to, our loved ones, police brutality, all of these things. To me, it's normal, right? And I liked how you weave through that in those intricacies. Were you thinking about Black women like me when you were writing that chapter?
I was thinking about me, Zakiya.
Yeah.
I was thinking about all the times that I've been called angry, all the times that I have been made to feel like I was wrong because, I spoke out. And so when I started writing this book, I was processing a bunch of negative feedback. And if you're not careful, when you hear negative feedback, you can internalize it and you can feel like you yourself are wrong. And that's how I was feeling. I felt like there was something wrong with me. And as I processed, I said, wait a minute. I started paying attention to the Black women in my life. And I said, well, many of us have been called angry. Many of us have been pushed to the side because, we weren't willing to pretend that we didn't see the things that were harmful. And so that's where that came from. It's not just my experience, it's not just your experience, but I know so many Black women, especially women in leadership positions, who've been told, "Oh, you're intimidating," or "Just bring it down a notch," or "Can you basically can you go along to get along?" And when you look at people who thrive and when you look at people who do well, I always wonder, what compromises did they have to make? What part of themselves did they have to shut down in order to move ahead? And if they have been able to stay true to themselves, like, how do they do that? What does that look like? So, so yes, I was thinking of all of us, all Black women who've heard that level of feedback and who've been made to feel that anger is bad. When you the chapter that you referenced, it falls under the category of myths to resist. And one myth that I'm telling readers to resist the myth that anger is bad. It's a natural emotion. It lets you know when something is wrong. It lets you know when a boundary has been crossed. So, that's what I was trying to lift up.
Absolutely. And I want to share a small excerpt with the audience from that chapter. And it is the title here in this chapter. It says, "Anger can be healthy." And you say here, there are many misconceptions about anger. Many people are uncomfortable when others express anger. They wonder whether they are safe. They become defensive. They judge the person who is experiencing the anger. But anger can be a warning light. It is an indication that a boundary has been crossed. It is also a reaction to one's need not being met. Before we harshly judge anger, we should remember that it can be healthy and necessary. It is so necessary that everyone experiences anger. When people are uncomfortable expressing their anger, they can turn it inward. In fact, depression is said to be anger turned inward. That right there resonated very deeply with me, particularly the last sentence. Because I believe that I experience depression occasionally. And usually it's connected to what I call trauma porn, where we see Black bodies that have been murdered by law enforcement, like Mike Brown Jr., who laid in the streets for hours without medical attention, without the fact that people saw him as human, without basic humanity, right? And how the cops stood around to make sure the community that was standing around couldn't go and support him, right? I think about things like that. I think about how my own children have been treated by white teachers in schools. And the anger is so overwhelming sometimes. Of course, you have to control yourself, right? Because you can snap and do something they will lock us up in a minute, right? And so that is the part for me when it turns inward and becomes the depression piece, where I can sometimes sleep for an entire day because of the exhaustion of just holding that, right? And the exhaustion of, honestly, Jennifer, feeling sometimes helpless. I can't do anything about this. And so as an organizer and as an activist, I know you talked about me in this book too, and you talked about other Black women who are organizers and activists. You know how hard it is for those of us who are doing this work as a social justice PR expert. Tell us about some of the other things you're hearing from your colleagues or just women in general who have gotten the book. I mean, have you been getting a pretty good response?
Absolutely. The feedback, when I was writing this book, I felt so convicted
Yeah,
that it needed to be written the way that I was trying to convey it. And what I've heard from Black women and even Indian women, and it surprised me, but what I've heard is, I feel seen. I feel like you were talking to me, or this brought up things that I was trying to suppress. I had one Indian woman, and we've known each other for years, and she sent me a page and a half letter. I won't go into all of it.
sure.
But basically, one of the things that she said is that she started reading the book in Barnes and Noble, and then as she started reading, she started crying.
Yep.
She said that she had to buy the book and take it home, and she said that she felt cared for, that she
Yes.
felt like someone saw her and that she was cared for. And she said, "Listen, I know that your intended audience was Black women." And she said, "But listen, there was such goodness in this book that I had to take it for me." And I've been hearing that from a lot of people. I've been hearing about Black women who've been holding on to these traumatic experiences at work and really not really sure where to go or what or where to turn or whether or not there was something wrong with them, and really feeling affirmed by the book. And to me, that tells me that it tells me that the book needed to be here and that it is serving its purpose. And my purpose was just saying, sis, it's not you. It's the environments that you walk in,
Right.
it's the environments that we live in. It's not you.
Right.
So
That's exactly right. That's so funny you say that. Um, because I was actually talking to my colleague Nish before you and I went live, and I was telling her about the book, and I said, Nish, I think you would also resonate with this. I think all women of color could read this book and see themselves. It was just like the experience you said from the Indian woman who wrote you that note to say, she was just sitting down reading it, and she could, really see herself. I think that's amazing. I think that's a testament.
and I should note, Zakiya, that it's
Yes.
been many Indian women. So
Wow.
next to Black women, the most feedback that I've received is from Indian women next to Black women.
Really?
Seriously. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Is it? That's so intriguing to me. That the next to Black women is Indian women, and it makes me think like their experiences, I guess, as Indian American women is so similar to ours. That's really, really interesting. Yeah. Is it similar feedback that the first one gave to you? Similar feedback?
Most people who've responded, the word that keeps coming up is "I felt comforted" or "I feel like you saw me." And I
Wow.
think for a lot of us, for a lot of women of color, we are very strategic in how we maneuver in white spaces. We're very aware of our
Wow.
uniqueness and what's different about us. And sometimes we hold so much of that in, we don't even know we're holding it in. And then a
Wow.
person only comes along and you're like, yes, that's it. That's what I've been feeling. And to be honest, when I was writing the book, I saw Black women. I saw Black women, and I saw the ways that non-Black women of color can perpetuate harm to Black women. That's what I saw. So as I've gotten this feedback, it has been it has been pleasantly surprising.
Yeah.
It tells me is that when we stand in our truth and when we tell our truth, we can liberate other people and we can help other people.
That is amazing. That's like the testament. Like people say that all the time, like when Black women get free, everybody else will. And I feel like that's a testament to that cliche that we say in organizing spaces. We say that all the time. You know what? I'm interested in if you get any feedback from men, right? Men who love Black women, men who are married to Black. What's that been like?
So I've had Black men say, "I know you didn't write this for me, but thank
Yeah.
you." I had one guy email me on LinkedIn and he said, "I read your book and I ordered it for all the Black women in my life."
Wow.
I have one friend, and he and I have been friends for years. I know him from political circles.
Sure.
He read the book and he said, "I want to introduce you to some Black women in my life." And he introduced me to two women in his life, and they're both organizing book talks. And they're in Toledo, Ohio. Zakiya and me
Yeah.
from Columbus.
We got that Ohio connection.
We have that Ohio connection, right? And so I was telling my friend Alan Bannister, he wouldn't mind me saying this, but I said, we were talking about the book talk, and one is in April. And I said, "Now, Alan, are you coming to the event?" He said, "Absolutely." And he says, "Look, I know you wrote it to Black women, but you're my friend, they're my friend, and I'm going to be there." And he's married to a Black woman, so he's like,
Of
"Yes,
course.
I'm definitely coming. Even if I'm the only man in the room, I'll be there." And so that
That
feedback has been great. And then the other thing is, you and I both know and appreciate Tim Black, an
oh
independent
yes.
media journalist with his own platform. Well, I was
Yes.
talking to Tim, and Tim was saying, Jennifer, it's very interesting that in this book you're very, very honest, but I never sense you bashing Black men. And so he and I had a dialogue about that because I said, no, my intention is not to bash Black men. And we had a great dialogue just around how we can tell our truth and do so in a way that doesn't bring harm, to others.
I am so glad you said that. And I think that's an interesting reflection in 2021. I have heard that from several Black men. I get that feedback, honestly, all the time. That when I talk about Black women specifically and our experiences, that I don't bash Black men. They recognize that because unfortunately, a lot, I won't say most, but a lot of the articles or books that are like written for or about Black womanhood, some of that like centers on this bashing like of Black men. And I think that for them, sometimes they're probably scared to open a book that's titled like that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here we go. It's a bashing session. But as you mentioned, like, and I don't see any of that as well. That's, I certainly wouldn't have resonated with the book if it was, right? I can't, being married to a Black man and having being a mother to a Black son. So I also really appreciated it. I'm sure the brothers appreciate that as well. And I think that a part of me actually feels sad that he even had to say that. You know what I mean? But that is a very interesting comment to come from a brother. And I remember when you were on his show, talking about that. I got a chance to catch some of it live. So, first and only, this book is actually not your first book, right? This is the second one.
So this is my second book. My first book was called Extraordinary PR, Ordinary Budget. Yeah. And what I've told people is my first book was about what I do in the world. This book is about who I am. What I do and who I am are very, very different. And so I have a level of energy and passion about this book that while I love my first book and I feel like my first book will be helpful and has been helpful for people who are in movement work, I feel like this book it was written about my experience as a Black woman. Mm-hmm. And that's just something that I don't think we talk enough about. And certainly we weren't talking about it 5 years ago to the way that we are now.
That is so true. And I love the fact that, and this actually triggered an experience for me. I worked at another national organization before coming to Brightbeam. And I remember I was always perceived as, even in a social justice nonprofit, as an angry Black woman. And one of the leadership books that was sent to me by the executive director of that organization was certainly written by a white man. I'm losing his name right now. But I remember you wrote that kind of like in your intro, like, I see you. Like, one of the reasons that it was so imperative for you to write this book was like, you actually needed a template for yourself. Nothing out there really exists like to tell Black women how to both succeed, in this work or even corporate environment where it's mostly, non-people of color who are like the majority in some of these spaces, but also in even how to thrive in our personal lives and being mothers and some of us being wives and stuff, and having to kind of like hold both of these at the same time. I love the fact that Nina Turner also in her foreword, she called that out as well. I just want to appreciate you for writing this, what I call as a love letter to Black women, and certainly other women of color resonated as well. And the fact that this is also a leadership development book for those of us who are working in these spaces, where we are in leadership, we are managing people, all of those different things, really come to the surface. And I thank you. And I encourage our listeners, if you are a Black woman or if you're men, you love Black women, I highly encourage folks to go out at the Barnes & Noble link. That's my own thing. I got to tell you, I can't,
I
um,
know. I know.
I don't mess with Amazon.
I
But
know.
anyway, I
I
bought
know.
the book on Barnes and Noble. So please use the link we provided in the chat. You will not be sorry. I believe it's a great gift as well. If you celebrate Christmas, that's coming up. I know it's a little while long, but birthday gifts, anything, especially for Black women who are professionals. I am actually buying several more books as well, Jennifer, because I have a cousin who she's a CEO and she was promoted about a year ago. And she and I have dinner and have those talks about her space is really wide. She's in real estate. And she's the CEO of I forget what it's called, realtors. Yeah. And she's in a suburban county. Um, most of the membership is very white. And she has that feeling that let me show up and just outdo everybody. Like this need to like show her worth and show how much she can perform. Yeah.
And if I could say something about this,
Please.
so I think that all of us as Black women, we have a different experience, meaning, our life paths are different. And I think it's very, very important that more of us tell our stories because people will relate. What has happened for years is that Black women have been given leadership books and we've been told, find yourself in this, or here's what you can expect. And you read the book and then you go into these situations and you face things that were not outlined in the book. So I think it's very, very important that more of us document our perspective on what it takes to thrive, especially in different professions. And, there are books by Black women. I was talking to Minda Harts, and Minda Harts wrote The Memo, and her book was written to women of color. And it really took off. And then there's the little Black book of leadership success, and that was written by two Black women. And there are others, but there's not enough compared to how many of us are in society. And so I think it's critically important that that there's more content, that all of us who have a story and something to say, that we say it. The final piece is, it was very important for me to say, Black women, we're enough to stand on our own. We don't have to be merged into other groups. Our experiences are so unique that we warrant content that's exclusively about us. And my hope is that as we walk into Barnes and Noble and we go to the success section or the self-help, we see something that has Black woman on the title. Don't have me guessing whether or not it applies. Say it plainly. And so that's part of what I was trying to do. And then this is really the last thing, Zakiya, because I'm not going to be like a preacher that says,
no, please keep going. This is about you.
But what I was going to say is that sometimes we expect to get certain things in organizations that are committed to social justice or organizations that are quote unquote committed to good. And in my experience, I've been most wounded in some of those places because a lot of people think that just because they espouse the rhetoric of social justice, that they don't have their own work to do. And I think that has been one of the biggest surprises, is going to a faith-based organization. And this has happened to me repeatedly, and thinking, okay, well, these people love Jesus. Everything is going to be okay. And you get in there and there's anti-Blackness inside the organization. Or going to, I've worked in other industries and it's like, no, they're about fairness. And then as Black people and Black women, you're not treated fair. And so what I'm telling people is this happens in corporate America. It happens in nonprofit. It happens in movement-related organizations. It happens everywhere. Unless the people are committed to doing their work, there's always going to be challenges and there's always going to be opportunities for harm.
You speaking a whole word right now. And, I'm not going to name the organizations, but I have been on the phone several times in the last few weeks, being an ear to another Black woman who has been harmed in the movement space, who was pushed out of an organization that she damn near built on her own. And to hear the pain, because it was from other Black people, right? To hear the pain in her voice and just see how like a part of her healing was to keep going. And one of the things that she did immediately, and it was shocking to me, was form another organization to continue what she had already built at the other organization. And I've been following her, we've been talking, and I'm like, it's okay to take some time to process what happened to you, because she keeps, it's like she has kept going. She has not stopped. She is doing the same thing and has created an entire new organization already. And she's one of the people I'm getting this book for, because your chapter on healing, or the section on healing, I feel like all of those, everybody, to me, and I love how you have it positioned in the book, is like not last. You feel me? Like we need that. And it's one of the things I have to say to you, Jennifer, that I am trying to do a better job of, is this idea of self-care. I got to tell you, look, can I just tell you how I responded when I first heard of self-care? I was still with racial justice now, so I'm still very much rugged, grassroots, doing 5 jobs in one, like just doing it. And I remember, because I started like flying across the country during that time, and I was in all these different spaces, and people started talking about self-care. And I remember looking at myself like, or thinking to myself like, y'all just lazy. I can't imagine Harriet Tubman talking about self-care. Because I was like, what? We in an emergency. I'm like, Harriet Tubman wasn't talking about no self-care. She was getting people to freedom. She wasn't. And so I realized that Harriet Tubman also did not live a very long life. You feel me? And that I am not trying to, not saying that I don't love my people, but I can't sacrifice my health and my life, because I also have children that I love. I want to be able to live to see grandchildren if possible. I had to like reshape how I thought about things,
Yeah.
because sometimes we can be so outwardly that we abandon what's really important.
I mean, that you said a lot. And for a lot of us who've done social justice work, we do struggle with being workaholics, because the movement will tell you the movement work is most important. And it is important. But we also have to remember that as Black women, we suffer from health disparities. We come into the game bringing generational trauma, bringing the wounds of our family, bringing the genetic fabric that either predisposes us to health or mental health challenges. That's how we start. And then, you talked at the outset about the trauma of doing this work. You're not doing this work as someone who's removed. You're doing this work, you live it whether you're working or whether you're not. So then you've got multiple layers where you're inundated. And it's really, really easy to think, oh, I'm so strong, I can do this, I can do it all. But there are a lot of people in the civil rights movement who lost their mind, who went crazy. That is a possibility. Or who contracted or developed certain illnesses. That is a possibility. And so when I talk about healing, I'm talking about the things that position us to be in the game, not for one quarter or 2 quarters, but to be in the whole damn game. And the other thing is, I feel like, do we really want to sacrifice our kids? The most profound thing that you can do is to raise strong children, and to be involved in the lives of your nieces and your nephews, or even those who you create family with. And so for me, the older I get, I'm getting very, very clear about what it means to take care of myself. Not just so that I'm around for my daughter and for my son and for my nieces and my nephews, but so that I can continue this work over the long term. And we can't do it if every day is 100 miles per hour. We will burn out. In fact, if you think about the people who leave the social justice movement, some of them leave because they're just tired. And you're always experiencing it. As you go through life in a Black body, you're always experiencing it. So I just think that this piece is very, very important. I just think it's very, very important. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, and that you shared your evolution and how you see these things.
A part of, and I'm trying to get through this without crying, a part of me evolving in that mindset was the loss of two young organizers right there in Columbus, Marshawn Mackerel and Amber Evans. I say their names. Powerful young activists. Marshawn took his own life on the steps of the Ohio State Capitol, and Amber Evans did too. And I thought about like how they were always bouncing, doing this, like really the movement was their lives, right? Like they didn't even have children yet, but they were young, energized, and overworked activists. And they felt like they had to do it because I know the feeling they had because I have it. I have this sense of emergency for Black people, right? We are in an emergency and we don't have time to be talking about self-care and all this other thing. But it was that too. And within a short period of time, both of them from the same organization, from the same city, I said, something's got to change because I know for a fact that you have depression doing this work. Now for me, like I've never thought about like taking my life or anything like that. And I want to say publicly right now, I would never do that because I would never leave my children, not intentionally, right? And so that, among other things, in terms of also like some of our ancestors now, I think about people like Amos Wilson. I think about like a lot of our ancestors who died early from strokes, brain aneurysms, all of these things that come from stress. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want that to be me. Yes, right. Talk about it.
And like I said, Zakiya, some of us, we're predisposed to different issues, but I'll tell you, in my family, I had an aunt who died at 45, massive heart attack. She died instantly. Yeah. I had another aunt who died at 49. She had a brain aneurysm and she was gone. And I remember going to the hospital and seeing her hooked up to tubes and knowing that she was gone. I had another aunt and she went in for a simple surgery, or what was quote unquote a simple surgery, and she died. I think she was 48. So I have lost 3 aunts directly, never even saw 50. Right. Damn. And they were not doing organizing work. They had their own stressors as Black women and they had their own challenges, And, one of my aunts, whenever I think about her, I always think, I always felt like she was carrying something. Right. And I always felt like she tried to present herself as very strong, and she was strong. But sometimes I wonder, who did she have to confide in? Yeah. So when I think about what it means to be a Black woman, I think about vulnerability. And I think about,
talk about that in here.
Yeah. And I talk about it in First and Only, but I think about, I'm not going to present myself as having it all together. I struggle from time to time. Right. And I have to have people who I can call and say, hey, listen, I just need to talk this out, or this is how I'm feeling. Can you give me a proper perspective? And even modeling for my nieces what it looks like to be disappointed, what it looks like to process disappointment. I was traveling with my niece and my daughter, and something happened, and I was so disappointed, Zakiya. And I decided I was not going to put on a happy face. I needed to cry in that moment. Yeah. Part of me that was like, no, don't let your niece see you cry. And I said, no, I want her to know that I'm human and that it's okay to cry and keep going. And so I broke down crying, and my niece, Shantae, she gave me a hug and she said, Aunt Jennifer, it's going to be okay. Aww. And, I said, I'm happy that I showed her that her auntie is a human being, right? Right. That you can express your emotions and you can move on. You don't have to take them with you. You can express it, you can process, and you can move on. And so I just think that everything that we're saying and what you mentioned about those beautiful organizers from right here in Columbus, Ohio, right here with the Ohio Students Association.
That's right.
I mean, it's just it's a lot to think about.
I so much is coming up, Jennifer. I want to share one of the things that I do for self-care. And I also want to share how stress has showed up in my body physically. So and certainly my coworkers know, and now the world will know, I live with chronic lower back pain. I have had an MRI. I have not had any physical injuries for the way that my lower back is physically jacked up. The spine, the disc, and all of that stuff back there in your lower back. Like when the doctor looked at it, he said, "Have you been in an accident?" He said, "What happened?" I was like, "I woke up one morning and couldn't walk. That's what happened." He was just shocked. He said, "Looks like trauma is there. I see blood."
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And so I live, and so I was actually forced to do self-care. And one of the things that is most relieving to me is massages. I go every week for a medical massage, and the stretching, all of that. It not only relieves the pain right in my lower back, but it also relieves some stress for me. And I didn't realize that that was something for me that actually really works. It's a pick me up. The other thing that I do for self care is exercise, but not the kind of exercise probably y'all thinking. I literally like being out in my neighborhood. Thank goodness I live in a walkable community, in a walkable neighborhood. And I love just walking in my neighborhood. My coworkers know this about me. Every day I try to get in at least 30 minutes to an hour of just being out in nature. And I listen to my favorite podcast and I walk. And I'm sharing that for other Black women or anybody who is listening. Find what works for you, right? And it could be anything. Find what works for you. I'm not encouraging, because some people do self-care with drinking and medicine. So I'm not encouraging that. I'm encouraging things that are actually healthy, right, for your body. Because we all also know people in our family who, and I will speak for myself, for my family, all I saw was strength. Shout out to my Aunt Janetta, if she's listening. All I ever saw was strength from her. But one of the things that she would do, and she was never an alcoholic or anything, but one of the things that she would do, brandy was her drink. She would come home, and we never knew until we got older that this was in Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up in the South. We never knew until we got grown that she was dealing with racist white folks all damn day at her government job. And she would come home and just get a shot of brandy just to take the edge off. She did that like every other day, often.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that was her thing.
Yeah. So, Zakiya, me and you have had these private conversations on how we wish people in movement spaces were more honest, about how they cope, what they're doing. Like, we've had these conversations. And so I'm really happy that we're talking about it openly here. And I'll tell you, yesterday, it was very, very nice outside. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to get my bike out. And I have a little seat on the back of my bike so I could put my daughter on it. So I picked her up relatively early, 4-ish. And then I came home, got the dogs situated. Then I put my daughter on the seat, got her helmet on. I got my helmet on. Mm-hmm. We went for like a half an hour bike ride. And Zakiya, can I just tell you how good I felt when we were
Yes.
I felt so good.
Yeah.
And so, like, relaxed. And she was happy. And I was thinking, our kids learn by what we say and by what they see.
That's
right?
So
also by what they feel. And so I was thinking, okay, well, what message am I showing her? And I said, well, I'm showing her that, being outdoors is therapeutic. I'm showing her a way to exercise. And I'm trying to implant these things in her so that when she is a grown, Black woman, she'll have different coping strategies that she can use. But that was like self-care. It was self-care for me, and it was
absolutely
self-care for her.
Absolutely. Jennifer, I know you have to run because I know you have another meeting. This has been great. And I know, like, you and I are joined at the hip. We're friends, but we also have a professional relationship. And I have to share. And I was so glad that you did it. But you have also been doing better about drawing your own line, even professionally, about your self-care. And girl, you checked me so good. When was this, in December? You checked me so good. I sent you something through social media. And you was like, girl, I am on vacation. Don't be sending me stuff. You didn't say it like this, but yeah. But I was like, okay, I see you. That's right. Reclaim your time, girl. So
Yeah.
you wrote the book. I want the audience to know she is living what she writes in this book. She ain't just talking about it, she's doing it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate her for that. Sis, share some final words. Everybody go get the book, number one, but share some final words as we wrap.
Well, I have to thank you, Zakiya, because like you said, we have a personal and a professional relationship,
Yeah.
and for real, one of the most disappointing things to me has been feeling like everyone who says that they're about it are really about it, and then finding
Oh, that's good.
and you are real, you are honest, you really, really care about Black people and our kids. And I have hope because of people like you. So I thank you for your work. I thank you for who you are in the world. And you're right. I am trying to be very, very, I'm trying to be very clear and firm with my boundaries.
Yes.
I appreciate you because when I said no, 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 you were like, okay,
Exactly.
it wasn't a thing. You were like, okay, and you respected that. And not many people can do that. So
Right.
I thank you for seeing me, and I thank you for working hard to see other people.
Absolutely. No, I love you, girl. And I know, like, as a Black woman, like, we will like work ourselves to death. So I appreciate you for like checking me, like letting me know, like, listen, I need time off too, girl. Listen, I'm not working around the clock. And I so appreciated that. And it actually it was good for me. Like, girl, everybody ain't doing this. Like, people have boundaries. I know you have a family. I have a family. Like, it was actually like a self check for me. Like, you should do that sometimes, a kid, because I'm so giving. Like, if somebody called me and they're in crisis, it could be the weekend, and a lot of times I'll take the call. You know what I mean? So no, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to
And
have you on this platform. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say to the audience, so my website is jenniferrfarmer.org. Put the R in there, which stands for my middle initial. So jenniferrfarmer.org. And then you could buy First and Only, a Black woman's guide to thriving at work and in life. Barnes and Noble would be
We
great.
got the link up.
The link is up. So with that, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Everybody go out and get the book right now, Barnes and Noble, and check out jenniferrfarmer.org for more. Thanks, Jennifer. Enjoy your day.